forget the day I moved into that apartment. It seemed like the perfect place, quiet, cozy, and in a great neighborhood. My friend Amy had just moved out, and I needed a place fast. The rent was cheap, and the landlord seemed nice, so I jumped at the opportunity. For the first few weeks, everything was normal. I'd come home from work, drop my stuff by the door, and relax. But after a while, I started noticing something strange. Sometimes when I'd come home, there would be a faint smell of perfume in the air. Sweet, floral, like roses. I didn't think much of it at first, but it started happening more frequently. At first, I thought maybe it was something from the building, or just a lingering scent from someone else. But it wasn't just the perfume. I'd also find little things moved around. My shoes slightly shuffled. A glass I had used the night before moved to a different spot. The couch cushions rearranged as if someone had been sitting there. It was subtle, but enough for me to start feeling like I wasn't alone. One evening, I got home later than usual. I opened the door and stepped into the apartment. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. The smell of roses was stronger than ever, and this time, it was accompanied by soft, deliberate footsteps coming from the hallway. I froze. My heart started pounding. "Hello!" I called out, my voice trembling. No response, just the sound of footsteps getting closer. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, too terrified to call the police. The footsteps stopped right in front of my bedroom door. I could hear slow, steady breathing on the other side. I didn't know what to do. I slowly inched the door open, my hands shaking as I turned the knob. The room was empty. But then I noticed something that stopped my heart. On the dresser, there was a framed photo of Amy, my best friend who had moved out months ago. But in the frame, something was off. Amy's smile wasn't in the picture. It was someone else's smile, someone I didn't recognize. The face was eerily pale and the eyes, they were staring directly at me. I slammed the door shut and ran out of the apartment. I stayed at a friend's place that night. The next day, I came back to pack my things. But when I went to the landlord to give notice, he said something that made my blood run cold. "That apartment," he said, his voice low, "was Amy's too. I know she moved out, but she never really left. You might want to check your lease. She was here before you." I moved out that afternoon. I've never gone back to that place. The scariest part? I couldn't get rid of the photo. It showed up in a box I was packing, and to this day, it's still in my closet. Sometimes when I look at it, the face in the picture changes, just a little bit, and now I swear I can see my own reflection in its eyes. It started as a prank. My buddy Jared and I were bored one weekend. We just graduated from college and didn't have much to do. So when we heard about this old phone number from an urban legend, we had to give it a try. It was said that if you dialed a specific number late at night, you'd hear a voice on the other end. Not just any voice, though. It was said to be someone who would claim to know things about you, things no one else could possibly know. Sounds ridiculous, right? But we were curious. The number was easy to find online. It was a local number, and the internet was full of weird stories about people who had called it. Some said it was a ghost. Others claimed it was just a creepy prankster. Either way, Jared and I decided we were going to find out for ourselves. That night, we sat in my living room with the lights dimmed, and I dialed the number on speakerphone. We waited, laughing nervously as it rang. Then the line clicked. A voice on the other end, cold and smooth, said, "I've been waiting for you." My blood froze. We both stared at the phone in shock. Jared even looked around the room, as if expecting someone to jump out from behind the couch. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaky. The voice on the other end didn't answer immediately. It just breathed heavily, almost like it was listening to me. And then it spoke again. "You don't know who you're talking to, do you?" it said. "I know you, though. You think you know everything about yourself, but I know your secrets, your deepest, darkest ones." I laughed nervously. "This is just some stupid prank, right?" "No, it's not," the voice said. "I know about Sarah, the accident in the car. You think it was your fault, but it wasn't, was it? It was her fault." I went pale. Jared looked at me, his face turning from amused to confused. "What is this? What's going on?" The voice continued, the words getting sharper. "You never told anyone about the argument you had with her that day, did you? You've been carrying it for years. You told yourself it was your fault, but it wasn't. You just wanted her to stop." I know everything. My heart was pounding now. How did it know about Sarah? Sarah was my ex-girlfriend, and we did have a fight the day she died, but no one knew about that. No one knew what was really said between us. It was too private, too painful. How could this voice know? Suddenly, the voice let out a chilling laugh. "But there's one thing you don't know. There's one thing I didn't tell you." I didn't even have time to respond before I heard the voice again. "Sarah isn't dead." The line went dead. We both sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what just happened. After what felt like hours, Jared grabbed the phone and checked the number I dialed, but it was gone. There was no number on the screen. A few weeks later, I was walking home from the grocery store when I saw her, Sarah, standing at the end of the street, just staring at me with the same blank expression she'd worn the day of the accident. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes, they were the same as they'd always been. I froze. She didn't move, just stood there watching me. I called out her name. She didn't respond. But the moment I took a stepped forward, I heard that voice again. The same voice that had spoken to me on the phone. "I told you she wasn't dead," it whispered in my ear. I turned, but there was no one there. Sarah hasn't spoken to me since that day, but every time I close my eyes, I can hear her voice. And the worst part is, I can't tell if she's alive or if I've just been living in some kind of nightmare since the phone call.